Hello there, homies. It's Casey Case. I'm bringing you another episode of Get Real. On this episode, I got to talk to Ray Garvin. You can follow Ray at RayGQ on Twitter. That's QUE if you were wondering. Ray is the creator of Destination Devi. He also has a Patreon you should definitely check out. Patreon.com/allgas. He's the guy you need to go to for all things Devi and college football. So check him out, check all his work out, and really go listen to that podcast that he drops because you can get a world of knowledge from that. As always, make sure you're following me on Twitter at TheCaseyCasem. You can follow the podcast on Twitter as well at GetReal_pod. You can find my writing over with the Fantasy Footballers and Fighting Chance Fantasy. This podcast is part of the DAP Network. You can go check them out on Twitter at DAP_network. Go listen to all the podcasts that are on that network because I will tell you firsthand, all of those peeps are super rad. Also, make sure that you rate and review this podcast. It really helps me out. If you have any ideas as to who you would like to see on the show in future episodes, go ahead and shoot me a DM as well. And now, on to my interview with Ray Garvin.
Hey.
What's up?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
All right. Trying to survive this cold.
Who you telling, man? This is Texas weather. I'm telling you, it's crazy.
It's a little bit of a mess.
Man.
Yeah, but other than that, good. I'm excited to get to talk to you because I haven't got to do that before.
Yeah, we haven't done it. This is the first time. Hopefully not the last time. Hopefully you'll have me back. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
Hopefully I do okay enough to where you're like, all right, I'll get that Ray dude back on.
Oh, no, for sure.
Where you live at?
McKinney.
Okay, you're in McKinney. I'm right outside of Rockwall.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember Rockwall, playing them in like high school and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Rockwall, Texas.
Oh man. Well, I'm gonna let you know ahead of time that I've had internet issues with one person, so I don't know if it's my internet or if it was theirs. So in case something comes up, I'm just giving you a heads up ahead of time.
It's all good.
Hopefully, it's all good right now. Nobody should be working this late, so hopefully nobody's on Wi-Fi. Yeah. So it's pretty cool because having you on the show, you're the first one that I've talked to that I really don't know too much about. Like I know about you, but I don't know as much as I know some of these cats. So, I guess my first question to you is probably the question that everybody asks you first: is how did you get involved in fantasy football?
I've been playing fantasy football for some time now, like years, like everybody else, right? My first fantasy league and living out here in Texas, Cowboys fan, right? You ain't got no choice. So I'm drafting like straight Cowboys. Like, I didn't care what position. I just wanted all Cowboys, right? So playing fantasy football. And actually, Casey, a couple of years ago, I was listening to a podcast. I'm not gonna say any names, I ain't gonna put them out there, but I'm listening and I'm like, yo, this is terrible advice. Like terrible. Like I played college football, so I like to consider myself like a decent like evaluator of talent. So I'm listening to them talk about some of these incoming rookies, and I was like, this is trash. Like I could do a better job than this. And I was like, all right, well, let's put my money where my mouth is. So I went and bought a mic and started just, interacting with people on Twitter and found Garrett Price kind of started talking to me from Dynasty Nerds, and they gave me an opportunity, and the podcast picked up some steam, and Ryan McDowell and I became friends. And honestly, that's kind of how it just started. Like I literally was just like, one day I was like, I could do this better than some of these people. And, not in some arrogant ass way, but just like, this is just bad analysis on these college players. And I love college football. I watch it. If I had the choice between college and NFL, I'd watch college all day. So that's really how it just kind of started. And from there, good fortunate breaks and working hard and grinding, it's all paid off. So that's really it.
That's totally awesome. Yeah, I really like the fact that you have a football background. You want to talk more about that? Because I know I've heard you talk about it on other pods, but I want to hear it from my own eardrums right now.
All right. So first of all, I was a decent athlete. Okay, I wasn't some high end talent, right? I grew up in Vegas and played football. Coming out of high school, I had a couple of Division I offers from Southern Utah, UNLV, and the biggest offer I had was Boise State. But I was kind of a knucklehead in high school and got into some trouble senior year, and the Boise State deal fell through. But fortunately, the position coach at Boise knew a coach at this little ass school in Nebraska, Shadron State College, and I wanted to play and I wanted to go to school for free. So my mom was like, "You're going to Nebraska?" I'm like, "All right, whatever." One street light in the town, so went to Shadron State College. And funny story about that, I was actually in the same recruiting class as Danny Woodhead. So Danny Woodhead and I played together. I know Danny very well. So I played there for 2.5 years before transferring back here to Texas at Texas Southern University. So yeah, a little bit of college football. So really glad and always forever grateful for little old Shadron, Nebraska, for giving a city kid like myself an opportunity and then having a chance to play with an NFL player. And Danny Woodhead was pretty cool to watch him day in and day out. We all knew he was going to be good too.
That's a really awesome story. Like, it's one of coolest things I've heard actually talking to people. No offense to the other people I've talked to, but that's pretty dope. Not everybody can say that they got to do what they wanted to do, that for college. Like, some of us are over here still paying off our student loans and trying to stay afloat. Um, so you said you grew up in Vegas,
Yep.
and obviously there wasn't a football team there at the time. Who were you a fan of when you were growing up?
Dallas Cowboys. That's all they played. I mean, we didn't have a hockey team. Now we got a hockey team. We got a football team. But at that time, the Cowboys they were it. So in Vegas, they just show, the primetime game, and that was always the Cowboys. So growing up, I was always a Cowboys fan, and I'm still a Cowboys fan, but I'm transitioning to be a dual. I got an NFC team and an AFC team now. So Cowboys on the NFC side and the Las Vegas Raiders on the AFC side, but Cowboys aren't doing too hot right
Yeah, I was
now.
about to say
So
it might
yeah,
be good to have a second team. I might need to do that myself.
for
Oh
real.
man. So after you played football and everything, and you were talking about how people weren't really getting the college stuff right, what made you decide that like Debbie was going to be the thing, college was going to be the thing that you focused on?
Yeah, the market. There weren't a lot of people out there focusing on Debbie. Everybody was talking regular, like it's just everyone was talking. Redraft. Everybody was already the dynasty space was already kind of already cornered. So outside of a couple of other people really talking about the college prospects from a fantasy standpoint, I figured that would be a good spot for me, being a former college athlete. And I know a lot of other Devi programs really, really, really focus on the Devi aspect of it, where I kind of consider myself like fraudulent Devi because I love the young guys, but I really want to incorporate how it affects us in dynasty, right? So it's not so much talking about like all these small school guys that will never get drafted, that will never pick on our fantasy rosters. It's really trying to get the casual fantasy gamer to say, I need to pay attention, to the people who pay attention to college so I can position my dynasty teams to make moves throughout the season to be better long term. So that's really where my angle is, right? Like, I love the college game, but it's getting people like you who may not be as like, I really don't care about Debbie, but I need to be ready for my rookie drafts. Like, all right, Ray knows his stuff. I know what he's talking about. I'll listen to him to get my rookie draft info. So that's sort of, I found a market for it, and it's worked out quite well.
Yeah, that is great, because I know like you said, I am one of those people. I don't pay attention to college football. I mean, it's just never been something that I've been into, but you're going to need to know at least something when you go into your draft. So it's good to have somebody like you as a resource.
Yeah.
Um, I totally agree with that. And you found the right market, so that's just awesome too. Like, that's one of the things I think people can take as advice is like, find a market that needs something, and go in there. If you're knowledgeable about it, find that market. You're going to have a fan base. And like you said, did you start off because of Twitter? Did you get found on
Yeah.
Twitter? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
like it's funny, the first thread or
mhm.
player that I talked about was Ashton Doolin, Ashton Doolin from the Colts, and I just did a thread of him, and Garrett Price, who I talked about from Dynasty Nerds, he actually went to Malone College. So when he saw that, he saw the tweet of Ashton Doolin. He's like, dude, I like that guy too. And I'm a writer at Dynasty Nerds. And I was like, I'm not the best writer, but I want to get in this fantasy space. But yeah, it started off on Twitter, like literally just talking fantasy and posting some stuff. And then you never know who sees you. And then it was just a snowball effect. Like I'm a firm believer in you create your own luck, right? I don't believe in just coincidence, like shit just happening randomly. When you put good energy in the atmosphere, when you put the work in, when you do something, I feel like some things eventually fall into, they find you, right? And it's up to you to capitalize on those opportunities. So once those opportunities presented itself and I got in there, like I was like, I want to be the best at this. Like, I know Ryan McDowell is the top and Evan Silva and all these guys, but every time I do something, I'm like, I want to be better than all of them. Like I want to be the guy. And that's just how I approach it. Now, will I ever reach that? Probably not, but that's the mentality that I have when I operate, when I do my stuff, when I build this destination Debbie thing up. Like I want to be the best at it, man. I'm competitive.
Oh, you're doing a really excellent job with it. Um, so to I don't know when you started over with Dynasty Nerds. I just remember it felt like at least that your like comeuppance was real quick compared to a lot of these even me and everybody else. um, when did you start over there?
I think officially it was around like April or May, like May of 2019 is when I really started. I didn't like the first podcast episode that I did wasn't until like June or July of 2019. So I've really only been in this space a little over a year, like officially, like doing work and putting content out there and arguing with folks on Twitter. Little over a year.
So, I mean, and
Yeah.
everybody can see like as you put your mind to something and you find your find your spot, then I mean, anything can happen. Right here.
And,
He's
and you
showing
know,
you.
the thing is, I did not like that wasn't a goal of mine. Like really, it wasn't a goal of mine to be like I didn't care about followers. I still don't care about that, to be honest with you.
Right.
I didn't care about any of that stuff. Like I just wanted to have like this is fun. Like I love to talk prospects and I love to talk football. So I just wanted to be a resource for people. And I just wanted to make sure that every time I did something, it was like the best, right? There are so many times where I've recorded a show or done a video. And you can ask one of my boys who helps work with me, Jordan Richards, at your boy Jay Rich on Twitter, where I'll do it and I'm like, that's not it. Like, I'm not putting it out. Like, and he'll be like, Ray, it's fine. I'm like, nah, it's not going out. Like, I'm not putting that out. So I never really like that wasn't a goal. Like I wanted to be good, but I never thought that I would ever make a dime from doing this. And I don't have a big team. I don't have editors. I don't have video people. Like everything that I do, all this stuff is I bought it myself and I'm doing it on my own. So
Yeah.
it's fun for now. We'll see how long it lasts.
No, I mean, you're doing a great job with all of it. Like, I was going to ask you about that, about doing podcasts and recording, just in general. When you started out, I'm assuming, I mean, when you started, were you just kind of like, I don't really know how to format it, or did you just like jump into it and you just went, roll with the punches? I mean, because your topic is so different than a lot of the stuff being talked about on podcasts.
Yeah, I'm really OCD. So before I even like started recording, I went through like iTunes and Spotify and I wrote down, I probably still have the notebook over here, every fantasy football podcast that was like every single one that was listed. I wrote them all down. I looked at how many episodes each one had. I looked at the frequency in which they released their episodes. I looked at the duration of their episodes. And I also looked at how many of them were solo podcasters because my show is basically just me. It's a monologue show. It's by myself, which is very difficult. Not a lot of people can do that. People don't want to listen to one person talk for 45 minutes. That's not good. No one wants to hear me for 45 minutes. So I try to really model what I did after like JJ Zacharyson, who's a solo podcaster, right? And his episodes are short to the point. It's not a lot of filler in there. He gets to the point. But honestly, me trying to sound like JJ was horrible. Like the show was bad. When I go back and listen to like the first 6 episodes, I was like, this was bad. So honestly, I just said, you know what? Screw that. I'm going to keep the format, but I'm going to be me. I'm going to talk how I talk. I'm going to say what I'm going to say. I'm going to just be Ray instead of trying to be Ray J. Not that Ray J, but Ray
Yeah, yeah.
slash JJ. And once I just was like, the hell with this. I'm gonna say what I want to say, how I want to say it. I'm gonna have my kind of swag. That's when things started to open up for me. But when I was trying to be JJ, it didn't sound like me. It wasn't authentic. But as soon as I said the hell with that, I'm gonna do me,
Yeah,
how I want to do it, things started to unlock.
that's awesome. I mean, this is my sixth episode of recording this right now, so you just missed the 6 episodes. I'm gonna listen back to this one and be like, that was right before I got good. So speaking of doing, I mean, podcasting and all of that jazz, how did you decide Destination Debbie was what you wanted to like put a lot of focus into and that be your baby?
Mm, to be honest with you, I don't know what moment I was like, okay, this can be a little bit bigger than just a podcast. I guess I just felt it, right? Over the past summer, I started my own Patreon, and once I saw how many people were joining, and people saying like, "Dude, I'm from Australia and I listen to you. I'm from Brazil and I can't get enough of your show." All these people, I'm like, man, like I didn't realize the reach was that far. And that's when I said this is bigger than I thought. So I mean, I made it official. Destination Devi is a licensed LLC. It's my business now. It's not even just a podcast. Like this is a legitimate business thing for me. What I want it to be, I don't know. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to be ESPN or like I have no desire to have a website. I don't have any desire to do that. I just like doing video work. I like talking on the mic. But it got legitimized. But there was a point where I was like, dude, and I'm not trying to sound cocky. I was like, I'm good. Like I know I'm good at this. And it's a lot of people who start out in the space that I listen to, they think it's all about like who has the best analytics and the best model, and it's not. Like you can have all of that you want, but if you can't deliver it, if you don't have the oratory skills for people to want to consume what you're giving out,
Hmm.
doesn't matter. You're just another person, another guy, another girl with a cool model, but you have to have something that people want. And I have no model. I can barely add, to be honest with you. I'm horrible at math. But I try to find entertainment in what I do and make people want to listen to me. And I think once you find that, shit, you can name it whatever you want to name it. People are going to gravitate to that and they're going to want to rock with you. And that's when I felt like people rock with me, and this is a little bit bigger than a podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you are so good behind the microphone. Like, I was listening to your podcast earlier today, and I'm just like, God, the way that you just can talk and just talk to a point where like I understand what you're saying, but like you're giving me information that you're getting right to the point. There's no gimmicks. It's just you. I love that. How did you get comfortable behind the microphone? Was it something that like you were already good at, or were you nervous? How did that go the first time you decided let's podcast?
I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't nervous, right? Every time, even to this day, I hate listening to myself. I hate it with a passion.
Gotcha.
Like when I'm listening through my shows to edit, I I, I really really try very very hard to one take through it. Like as I'm recording, I
Hmm.
know like okay, I nailed this. I don't even have to edit it. Like just a couple little things to add some ad reads in there, but I know I nailed it. I don't want to listen to myself back. It is nerve wracking just getting behind your microphone and looking in a camera and talking. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. And to be honest with you, I'm a professional BSer for a living. Like I'm an attorney and I have a job where all I do is talk all day long. So I'm pretty good at just BSing. And then sometimes when people think I'm really delivering fire content, I'm just behind the mic BSing. But again, it's the entertainment, right? It's the entertainment and the authenticity. I think that's the biggest part is when you're real with it. When I'm wrong, hey, I'm wrong, man. Like I have no problem saying I'm wrong. I missed on that. And just being true to myself and being true to everybody else. So getting behind the mic now, still a little nerve wracking sometimes, but just be you and let it flow, and it just comes off like silk, baby.
Yeah, you gotta, and your voice is so nice for talking into the microphone. It really is. You gotta really, it's. I mean, it's sometimes you're like, when you hear people, you're like, I don't know if I can
Yeah,
keep
that's the
listening to this
filter. It
person.
ain't me. It's the filter. I got this special filter on it. It ain't me, man.
Oh, sure, sure. So you said you were an attorney. I didn't know that. I actually work at the courthouse in Collin County. So,
Oh
um,
man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. How do you manage, like, you know everything on top of fantasy football? I know life is like more, family and work and everything else comes first. But how do you balance that?
It's brutal. I mean, you gotta, right now, I'm glad to be here, but hell, I want to go to sleep. Tired.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
for
not
sure.
rushing you at all,
No, no,
but
no, no, no. I'm the same
but
way.
but that's why I anybody who does this or anybody who writes articles, like I give them the utmost respect because it's so funny when people consume free content and want to complain about it or
Yeah.
and it's like it takes a minute to write a good article. Like I've done that and I don't want to do it again. It takes a while to write a good article, to produce a show, to podcast, to set up guests, to make sure your guests are comfortable. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of sacrifice. Like there's other things that you can be doing right now opposed to talking to me and producing content for people to consume. So it's a lot of sacrifice on our ends. It's a lot of weekends. It's a lot of late nights. My wife's in there right now. I want to lay down with her and rub up on her. But hell, I got a pod. I got to edit my show. I recorded a show before I got on with you. And then I've got my
Oh,
patrons that I got to take care of. So,
huh?
but what I say is, I told myself if this ever felt like a job and it felt like I was taken away from my family or whatever, then I wouldn't do it anymore. So that's why when we were scheduling, I was like, hey, it's got to be after this time. Or, I tell some people like they got to schedule me out a month or two, and I'm not like big stuff, but hey, I got this show tonight. I'm not gonna do one. I'm only doing one guest show a week. Like there was a point where I was doing podcasts every day, and it made my relationship with my wife suffer. And I had to sit back and I was like, over fantasy football, I'm really like beefing with my wife
Yep.
because I want to be on a podcast. Like,
Yeah.
so honestly, I only do like one guest show every other week if I do that. Like I just don't do it anymore. It's about me, it's about my product, it's about my consumers. And now the content that I create for people who pay for it. And I know that may
Yep.
sound, you could call it what you want, but those people pay for me. So I want to give them the best version of Ray that I can instead of some people make you pay for something and it's crap. Like I don't want my people who pay for me to feel like they've gotten cheapened any type of way. So because of that, I cut down on guest podcasts and I give them my time. I give my family my time. And with you, I was really excited to be on here and talk with you. So I'm glad to be here. But it is a tough juggle. So shout out and respect to everybody out there doing this.
Word. I mean, I feel like I'm asking everybody this question about their family and stuff because with me, like, I need to learn to like take it back a couple steps instead of trying to do so much. Because during this whole pandemic thing, like, my wife's been working from home, and I was for a while. When she was traveling, I'd have 3 or 4 nights a week that I could get on a podcast, but now she's home every night. So me even starting a podcast up during this time is, it can wear on a relationship, like you said. So I feel like I'm getting relationship advice from all of
Value
you.
your time. Hey, listen, real talk. Value your time because nobody else is gonna value your time like you value it, and that's the only thing we got in life. At the end of the day, you could strip all the money away. You could strip all that away. Like we have time, and it's just a small amount. So make sure you value your time and pour into what's really important. You know what I mean? This podcast is important. This is important to you. This is an opportunity, but don't let anything else suffer over this stuff. Because you know what? The day that this podcast quits, stops running, the day that Destination Devi is done, the fantasy space is going to go just fine without Ray and Casey. So make sure you value your time because nobody else will.
I love it. That is good advice, especially to people like just now trying to get into being part of the fantasy industry. You don't think about how much work it's going to be. Really, I mean, it's so fun. It is fun, but at the same time, like, you're gonna sometimes have to, like, say, dinner's gonna have to be pushed 30 minutes, and it's no big deal, but like just keep that in mind. But not to go back to money, since you were we were talking about money, um, Patreon and you having one of those, it's something also I think is kind of you don't see as often, just because people want to be behind a paywall, but they want to be, like you said, behind a paywall where you get some content that's the same as everything else. I know you've talked about it, but I want to know more about like the thought process behind that, because it is important to put out a good product, and I do like the fact that that's why you're doing it. But when did that idea, float into your head?
To be honest with you, so you see there's one right here. It says Victory Lap, Dedication, and Hustle and Motivate. So my favorite rapper is Nipsey Hussle, and Nipsey Hussle is a big time entrepreneur. Those of you who don't know, he had opportunities to sign with big time record labels, Def Jam, Interscope. Everybody wanted him, MMG, Rick Ross, and those folks. But he said he wanted to do his own thing. He was his own business. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I wouldn't go as far as saying I'm an entrepreneur, but I wanted to do my own thing. Like I was with Dynasty Nerds, and that was fun. I was with DLF, and that was I am forever grateful for those guys. But I realized that I didn't I got to a point where I didn't necessarily need that to promote me, because the quality of what I was already doing like promoted itself. And at that point, instead of working for somebody, I said I'm going to take a leap of faith and just do it on my own. Like I don't want to, and the thing is, I respect Ryan and those guys way too much. I could have stayed with DLF. They didn't tell me to go. I could have stayed with them, but I felt like I was cheapening them
Mhm.
by, pushing my stuff through. Like it just didn't feel right to me. So I struggled with it, but I told Ryan, out of respect for him and what they do, I'll step away. I don't want to commingle Devi on DLF with Devi with Destination Devi. So it really got to a point where I know this sounds like I just believed in myself. Like I believed that I didn't need that in order to promote what I was doing. I felt like I was big enough to do that on my own. And when I started that out, it showed. Like it took off. And you never really know until you just don't want to regret things, right? You just got to try it. And if it failed, I think I left both of those companies in good enough standards to where if I wanted to go back to DLF, I know I could. If I wanted to go back to Dynasty Nerds, I know I can. But to be honest with you, I don't think I ever will, because when I'm tired of doing this, like I just won't do it anymore. And sometimes I've thought about it like, man, it would be nice just to be able to watch football on Sunday or watch football on Saturday without thinking about what the hell I'm going to tweet out about said player and what I got to record. But the people spoke. They said we want you, Ray. And when they said that, I was like, all right, I'm not going to do a website, so let's do Patreon, which
Mhm.
they take a lot of money. They take a lot of your money. Patreon does, but
Yeah.
I just felt like I was at that point where I could do it on my own.
Mhm. No, that's totally cool too. Like to be able to branch off and have your own brand, and to be your own, your own entity. That's so cool. And you were just talking about football and watching football on Saturdays and Sundays and having to think about, what am I, versus I just want to relax and watch football. I've talked to some people and they're like, I don't watch football at all. And then some people are like, I watch every single game. I don't worry about it. I don't check my fantasy scores. I just watch every. How are you on game days?
Yeah, this year I stopped checking them. Like I set my lineup and then, I check in. I don't check them, right?
Hmm.
Last year I'm like glued to the phone. Like I'm every play, I'm like scrolling through all these leagues, and it just made it wasn't fun. Like I didn't even like watching football. Like I was just checking for my fantasy scores. So now I set my rosters, set my lineups, and then I just turn the games on and watch the games, and I'll check in at the end of the half or, after the first slate of games. Honestly, there's some leagues I haven't even checked in. Like it'd be Sunday night and someone's like, "Oh man, you barely beat me." And I'm like, "Really? I didn't even know." Like I just want to watch the games. Like I enjoy football. I enjoy the sport. I love the game. Fantasy football is a byproduct of that. So this year I've really just toned down checking the phone, checking my scores every 5 minutes. You know what? Because no matter how much like reverse psychology we think by looking or not looking, it's not going to affect the outcome of the game. So
Yeah, for sure.
I might as well just enjoy it and then let the fantasy chips fall where they will.
I like it. That's also good advice. Like just well, whatever works for you too. But
Yeah.
um, well, I enjoy the game of football too. Like if I mean, except for when I have to watch the Cowboys games lately, but in general, I love the game of football. Is there is there any other like fantasy sports that you've played as well besides football, or has football been like the only thing you've dipped your toes in?
I tried basketball, too many games, too many games. Someone tried to get me in fantasy baseball, way too many games. Can't do it. Way too many. But it so the only fantasy sport that or fantasy game that I participate in is fantasy football. But I am again from Vegas, so I don't want to say addicted, but I do like sports betting. I'm throwing parlays out there. I'm a big with the player prop bets, so I enjoy a little gambling on the side. I'm probably more locked into the gambling tip than I am fantasy, to be honest with you, on Sundays, which isn't good either, but still.
Hey man, theme money. Here we go.
Yeah.
um, now I'm all discombobulated here. I was going to talk to you. Do you play anything like? Do you play redraft, or have you set your sails and said bye deuces? Because a lot of people are like, nah, no more redraft.
I got a couple of redraft leagues with some of the homies, and they are very casual gamers.
Yes,
So it's kind of easy money.
yes,
Like they just yeah, and I don't even feel bad about it either. Those are my boys, so they keep asking me to be in it, and I've won literally probably like 3 or 4 years in a row, and I've got a dominant team this year. So the only like not really competitive redraft leagues, and then some of the industry charity leagues that are redraft, I do those, but you don't really. I don't want to say you don't care if you win or lose. You want to win for charity, but
right.
they're not as like intensive. So yeah, they're not like that. So really, just a lot of dynasty, Devi, and then campus to Canton leagues are sort of what I like.
That's great stuff. The like the campus to Canton that you were just talking about. Can you talk more about that for people out there that have no clue what that is?
Best format, best way to fantasy, hands down. And I'm gonna just tell you, I know you said you're not a big Devier,
No.
but you do Devy because you love your rookie drafts and you're talking about all these rookies, so you sort of Devy, you just don't know it. You don't realize it yet. Instead of trading your rookie picks, oh, I traded a first round. Why don't you just put a face with a name? Put a face with a name. That's all Debbie is putting a face with the name. That's all it is. And campus to Canton is beautiful because you draft like a full college team. We're in the startup right now. 40-round draft. You draft a full college roster. You play a season on the college side, and then you draft a full NFL team, and you play your regular fantasy season on the NFL side. And once the college players graduate and are drafted, they automatically shift to your NFL team. So what I tell people who are kind of like thinking about Devi and all that, you like to trade. I like to trade. We all like to trade. It gives you like like 2 and 3 additional trade layers because while you're sitting there looking at your NFL team, you're like, I can go trade Ray. Ray's got 2 college guys that I want next year. If I give you Daniel Jones and this other college player, can you give me Kyle Pitts and Najee Harris? Like it's a whole like it opens up like a whole new world of trade possibilities and roster construction. So if you've got Trevor Lawrence on your college side, then when you're doing your NFL startup, you don't have to take a quarterback in the first couple of rounds because you already know you got a stud on the college side coming in next year. So then it opens up possibilities on the NFL side and vice versa. So campus to Canton, like that's my favorite format of fantasy football. It's really fun, a lot of strategy to it, and I'm a college nut, so I'm very much biased when it comes to that.
That is super awesome. I've heard of it, but I haven't like really like looked at it. So it's cool to hear it spelled out like that because yeah, it does sound super cool. Do you commission any of those leagues?
The worst thing. I hate being a commish. I hate it. I'm probably one of the worst commissioners out there. I'm sorry to people listening to this that are in leagues with me. I'm terrible. Yes, I do. It's horrible. I don't like it. I just want to play. I don't want to commission anything. I don't want to set rules. I don't want to do it. But yes, unfortunately, I'm a horrible commissioner in about 5 or 6 leagues. Oh, you're still on mute. I can't even hear you.
Hey, I don't ever put myself on mute because I have to start doing it or I talk too much.
It's all
I don't
good.
want to take away from the ratio. So but man, no, I don't even know what I was just at. Oh, I said I commission only one league and it's just redraft, and it's one of those leagues where it's just a bunch of my friends that I wanted to get
Yeah.
involved in fantasy football. It's all women, and we all do a live draft every year and everything. So that's cool. But I can't imagine commissioning anything like that. And yeah, I see. But you know what? It's fun. At the end of the day, it's fun to play.
Yeah, it's fun to
Yeah, yeah,
play.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I have no idea why it keeps me hitting. I didn't press anything.
It's all good. It's all good.
It's gonna be a fun one. All right.
Yeah.
Like you said, I don't like to listen to myself back either. And now the editing process right here, right down real quick. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, do your friends come to you though now that they know that you're like the Devi college mind? Oh, did they come to you asking you for tips and tricks?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They sure do. And I tell them to go to patreon.com/all gas and pay me. And then I'll give you but I do. But yes, they do. They come to me for advice. It's funny because when I started off, they all thought it was kind of like nerdy and poke fun at me a little bit for doing it. And now it's like, hey man, should I do this? Or what do you think about Joe Mixon? Or, what do you think? Like now they do come to me. And it's funny because they come to me individually and some of them are in the same league. So then I'm talking to like multiple people from like watching them trying to orchestrate each other. It's fun, man. But I'm a resource to them. Of course, they come to me and ask for help. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
It's kind of cool until they come back at you and they're like, "Man, you told me this
I
guy." And
know. I
I had
know.
that happen this
Exactly.
weekend when I was like, "You should play Cam Newton." Yeah, sure, play Cam Newton over whoever. I'm sure whoever they had was probably
Hey, I
better
I
than
just tell them process over results.
that.
Get out of my face.
Yeah. Boom.
Yeah.
um, how do you deal? I don't know if you've dealt with this or not, but you have enough of a following on Twitter. I'm sure you probably have. Do you ever have people get into your mentions that are like total scumbags, or at least kind of dickish? And how
Yeah,
do you deal with
of
it?
course. Um, I really try to I really try to stay out of the fray, right? Like I try really hard to not get into that, but when it's like disrespectful, like if you think I have a bad take, I don't care. Like if I said Cam Newton's the best quarterback ever, or whatever the case may be. If you disagree or think I'm crazy, that's fine. It doesn't bother me. But blatant disrespect, like on personal levels, to myself or to others, I really just don't deal with. I see all kind of garbage on Twitter. It's like it's just a game, man. Like it's not that. Like I tell people are way too sensitive. First of all, way too sensitive. So much sensitivity on Twitter. You don't agree with me, fine. But once you start, the name calling, the nasty name calling, or if I see, especially for women, I see a lot of BS like, how the hell can you talk about football? When I see stuff like that, that's not who I am. That's not who I want to raise my boys to be. So I just don't engage with it, and I don't mute. I just block. Like I'm just blocking you, dude. Like I don't care. And I actually went through this whole Twitter purge probably about 2 months ago, and just like I'm very mindful of the content I consume on my Twitter. Right when I open up my feed, there's certain things that I want to see, and there's certain things that I don't want to see. And if I don't want to see them, then I'm not going to follow you. And I had to tell a couple of people it's nothing personal. Like it's not that I'm trying to big time you. I'm mindful of what I want to consume when I pick up my phone and go to Twitter. So if anybody's too out of pocket, out of line, I'm just gonna block you. Like I'm not even gonna engage in a conversation. I had some people. I was in a league with some people, some good people, some well-known people in the industry, and one of the commissioners just said things on Twitter that I just philosophically and morally didn't agree with whatsoever. And I left the league and I told him, no hard feelings. You believe what you believe, you think, you say what you say. But, I can't rock with that. And, I'm very straight up like that. Like, I'm just going to call it like, this is me, right? A lot of people on Twitter have this fake ass persona and they want to be these keyboard warriors and all of that. And then if you were ever face to face with them, they wouldn't say any of that. Like, I'm really this way. Like, the way that I talk on podcasts, the way that I interact with my following, like, that's me. So you're gonna get me. And if I don't rock with you, like, I don't gotta hide it. I'm not gonna mute you. I'm just gonna block you, dude. Like, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to see that. So that's what it is.
Yep. I mean, I mute some people when they want to start arguing with me. Then they just start arguing with nobody because I'm not there anymore. But for the most part, I'll block. They're just going to be tools because I don't have time for that. Yeah, I want a quality timeline. I'm not going to sit and settle for less than that.
Yep.
Um, but on the opposite end of that spectrum, Twitter can be a dope place. We all know that you know, that they reached out to you on Twitter to get you to come over and write with Dynasty Nerds. So, and to be a part of Dynasty Nerds. Has there been anybody on that you've networked, kind of like quote unquote networked with on Twitter that it was just like kind of like took you aback and like you kind of fangirled over, or like somebody that like you looked at while you were coming up and were like, man, that I can't, if I ever get to talk to that person, woo.
Yeah, I think McDowell was the first one.
Hmm.
Ryan McDowell was the first one. He would, sometimes analysts say I've got like 15 minutes, ask me anything. And I remember I was at the movies and I asked him a question one day, and all he responded was like Andrews. Like, I'd asked about Mark Andrews and he was like Andrews. And I was like, oh, Ryan McDowell responded to me. And then now I like text him and call him and talk to him, which is crazy. Brad Evans from Yahoo, to be like have him on my show and talk with him was really cool. Like, I was like, dude, like, I'm listening to your like 2-minute fantasy clips. Evan Silva, another guy, like, to DM with him, to talk to him, for him to tell me like I'm doing good stuff and dope. Like, that was really cool. Marcus Grant from NFL Network. There are a couple of other people, a couple of other athletes that have interacted with me that I can't believe that this professional athlete actually saw something I put out. Like, college players, Jalen Rager. I know a lot of anybody who knows me knows I know, like, I'm the Jalen Rager guy, but to actually like talk with him and know him through Twitter and putting out stuff and talking about how good of a prospect I thought he was. This stuff is humbling, man. It's humbling, and you never know who's going to see your content, who's going to see a tweet. That's why I'm not really big on like really really crapping on athletes. Even though I've had a couple, I was like, he stinks. But yeah, there's been some people in the community that it's really a humbling experience. And say what you want about this guy, but Matt Kelly, the Podfather, I know a very very polarizing figure in this space. Very polarizing figure. Okay, I'm just gonna say that.
Okay.
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I respect his business mind, right? I respect his business acumen. So to interact with him and to get to know him personally outside of the persona on Twitter is really cool, man. And everyone's got a story, everyone's got something, and we're all not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I can be as respectful as I want to be, but some people may not rock with me. Like, they just may not like my persona. And that's okay. That's okay. Even talking with you, like, you're talking about all these like big name people, but I remember the first time I saw you, and I think you were like rapping or something.
Yeah,
And
probably.
I'll just say this, like, regardless of what people think about your lyrical flow, to do that and to put yourself out there in a public space takes a hell of a lot of courage, a hell of a lot of guts to do something like that. And I remember seeing you and I was like, dang, she's from Texas too. Like, and we never really interacted, but to even be on here with you, it's humbling because something said, hey, I want to reach out to Ray. And I appreciate that. Doesn't matter how many thousands of followers you are, like, this interaction that we're having right now is authentic, it's cool, and I'm humbled by it and I really appreciate it.
No, I you were probably the first person I thought of to come on here because I want to get people on here that I don't know that much about, but I know are super rad people. And I knew you. I've been following your stuff, and I saw how everything's grown, and it's just like I got to hear this guy's story, And I know we haven't touched a ton on your story. We've been jumping into like helping other people out, and then like Twitter and all that jazz. But I mean, what kind of advice do you have for people that are listening right now that are just now getting started in this whole thing and like have no idea what's going on, what are like the things that you think they need to grasp a hold of at the beginning?
Um, I think there are there are a lot of things, but you kind of learn them along the way. I think that the big thing is you have to be you. You know what I
Right.
mean? Whatever that is, you have to be you. If your goal is to set out to get 100,000 followers, 50, if that's your goal, like even now for me, that's so far down the line, it's like unobtainable, right? Like if that was my goal and all you're doing is stressing out about followers and stupid stuff like that, then don't even waste time. Don't even waste time. I think the quality of your product and my big thing for podcasters, video, like make sure your audio sounds good, make sure you sound good because if I turn on a show and it's trash mixing, the audio's bad, I'm turning it off and you've already at that point you've wrecked kind of your credibility, right? Like no one's going to give that another listen. I'm not going to hear garbled audio and then be like, "Oh, I'll try it out tomorrow." Like, no, I'm done. I'm not listening to this again. But be yourself. Make sure that quality over quantity. If it takes you 2 days to edit your show, don't
Yeah.
worry about it. Doesn't come out on a Monday. It comes out on a Thursday. Whatever. Like, make sure your stuff is good. It's a reflection of you. So if you want people to consume your content, make sure it's the best possible version of what you can do. You put that into the atmosphere. And I also think just being humble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'd rather build bridges than burn them. So even if we don't interact every day, if I see stuff come across the timeline, I don't mind liking it or retweeting it, or anything like that. Like I try not to have a whole bunch of enemies. You catch more, what is it, bees with honey than you do, other stuff, whatever that saying is. I don't even know what it
Something
is.
like
I
that,
don't know
right?
what it is. Something like
Yeah.
that. You get what I'm saying. So,
Honey and bees,
um,
yeah.
honey, bees, salt, flies, whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
But the big thing is be you, and make sure your stuff is tight, man. Make sure your
Yeah.
stuff is tight, and be you. That's the best advice I can give. There's a lot of advice that I can give, but you got to be you, and you got to make sure your stuff is clean.
I like it. Yeah, I'm still. I had some network issues the other night, and things were getting choppy. So, like to hear you talk about, make sure you get a good quality product because people aren't going to listen if it sounds bad. And I remember listening to podcasts back in the day where it sounded like everybody was underwater, and that's just because that's what the quality was back then. Nobody knew what they were doing, and now there's so many people out there doing it and doing it well. I didn't think I could edit a podcast to save my life, and I
Yeah,
could put something together, at least.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
with you, and when you go on and guest on podcasts, because obviously the dynamic's different than when you do a solo podcast because you have other people you're interacting with, so on and so forth. What do you think the biggest advantage to solo podcasting is over like podcasting with a co-host?
Oh, I can do it when I want, how I want, wherever I want, how long I want. Like I don't have to depend on anybody, and it's just sort of how I am. I would rather be on my time than somebody else's time. There's nothing worse than you being ready to do something and then even tonight, you were ready to roll at 8. I had to come on at 8:05. Like little stuff like that. And I know in the grand scheme of life, like 5 minutes, you were probably just getting set up. It's not a big deal.
Right.
But time, right? Like what if that was 30 minutes? What if it was an hour? What if I said I couldn't do it? It's like now I got to figure something else out. So doing it by myself, I just can control the narrative way more. And like I recorded the show before tonight. Like if I don't want to edit it after this, I'm not going to edit it. Like I'll do it tomorrow. Like just do it tomorrow. There's no pressure. So I do feel there's an advantage, but I also feel there's a disadvantage because sometimes I don't want to talk. Like I don't want to talk all night. I don't want to. I don't have a lot to say, and it would be nice to have somebody to sort of push me, or piggyback, or help facilitate the conversation. But it's give and take, right? There are pros and cons to doing it yourself. And when you're doing a solo podcast, TED Talks are 18 to 25 minutes. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, all I have to do is really talk for 15 minutes and then I can be done. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, that's
you know,
nice.
I'm not stretching it for an hour or anything like that. But
Right.
again, the downside is not having somebody and sometimes it's tough. I would like somebody on with me to guest, to help host, or whatever, but I'm a lone wolf, so I just like doing stuff on my own.
No, I get that too because I like I don't know the yeah being able to do your own schedule and create your own on your own time. When you do podcasts and you're having a bad day and things have just been like ridiculous, do you find that you have to like turn a switch on and just be like, or do you just like say nope, I'm not doing it at all today, or do you how is that dealing with the stress of life, dealing with the stress of the day, and then you go to podcasts?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Right now, I don't feel well at all. Like, I don't feel good. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's the weather change, but I just feel if I agree to come on a show with somebody, then I want
Mhm.
to give them me, right? Like, I want your audience, I want your listeners to be like, dang, he did a good job. So if I felt like I wasn't going to be able to be me, I would have told you I can't make it. Like, it's just you're not going to get the right energy. You're not going to get the right vibe. I'm sorry. I know this probably is a bummer, but let's reconvene.
Mhm.
But agreeing to come on somebody's show, like this is me. This is me. It's a representation of who I am, the brand that I built, and the quality of content that I want your listeners to expect from me. If some of them say I want to try that guy out, so I owe it to you. I owe it to your listeners. I owe it to myself to come on here and give you everything I have, regardless of how I feel. And if I knew that those outside factors were going to influence what I could do behind the microphone tonight, I wouldn't have come on.
Wow. I mean, there you go. I feel the same way, and I love that you said that. Yeah, you got to be yourself, and if you're having a bad, everybody has a bad day, and you just got to figure out how to finagle everything and get it to work the way
Yeah.
that you want it to. So no, I totally get you there. Um, yeah, I'm not feeling so great right now. I think I turned the heater on too high. My face is turning red. All right. No, I'm actually I am gonna let you go in just a second because I feel like these kind of interviews should be like to the
Oh,
point
I
and
ain't
then not
rushing you.
stretched out.
Hey,
No, 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 no,
you
no,
do
no.
your thing. You do your
Everybody
thing.
says that. Look, it's really hard to like end a podcast like this because it's like we're talking and then I'm like, okay, well, I really, want to go to sleep. so, so how do I, yeah, how do I make this a smooth transition? And I did a horrible job. So, no, I just want to ask, one, I guess, big question at the end is there anything that you haven't done yet that you look forward to doing either like in your fantasy life, fantasy football life, or just like in general in life?
Um, Fantasy wise, honestly, I feel like I've done it. Like I'm good. A lot of people. It's funny. A lot of people are like, Ray, you're gonna go to like a big network, or you like. I don't really want that. I don't. Like I feel like I've done it. I created a successful podcast. I have provided value for people. People have said that I helped them win, a fantasy league. I've put them in a position to win a fantasy title. Like I've done what I needed to do. I don't, I've been fortunate enough to have a good job to where it would take a heck of a lot to get me to like not do that and do this full time. So I feel like I've done what I needed to do in this fantasy space. And I know it's only been a year, but I've done a lot in this year. Like and it hasn't been easy. A lot of people say, "Oh my God, you just blew up so fast." Like they don't see the hours, literally up midnight, 2 a.m., getting stuff together. How much money I've paid out of my pocket for stuff. Like I feel like I've accomplished a lot with. I've had help along the way, but I don't have anybody backing me. Again, no, I don't have any kind of editor or anybody to send my show to and cut it up for me. Like I gotta do this stuff. So in that realm, I could leave this space and feel like I made a mark, even if it was a small mark. People know me as the Debbie guy. They know me as the college dude. Like I made my mark. In life, I know this sound kind of cheesy, but I just want to be a good dad. You know what I mean? I want to be a good dad to my boys. I want them to look at me and see the hard work that I do, whether it's at work or on this side job, and be like, I want to be better than him. Like I want them to be better than me. So that part of my life and that chapter of the book is still it remains to be written. So that's what I want to do in the grand scheme of life. But this fantasy space, shit, I can stop this tomorrow and say I did that, man. Like I came in from somebody who was just listening to a show that said I could do it better, and I do it better than those individuals as well. So I did that. I got nothing else to prove, man.
Yep, and you do it so well. You do it so well. So, yeah. If wow, dude, you're just an awesome dude all around. Why don't you go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you, plug your stuff, do all that jazz?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be honest with you. When this opportunity presents itself on shows, I really don't plug anything. If you want to rock with me, follow me on Twitter at RayGQ, and that'll be you can figure out the rest from there. This is your show. I want to tell you that I really appreciated this interview. I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah, me.
I didn't really know where we were gonna go. But as
Yeah.
a fellow Texan,
Yep.
as a female in this space, man, and listen, as a black dude in this space, there aren't many of us in this
Right.
space. There aren't many black analysts, and
Mhm.
I see some of the stuff that you and women take in this space. And I remember like the second episode that I did. It was the second or third episode. It was basically like a shout out to all women in this space because it's kind of BS to think that a woman can't know football, right? You didn't play, so you don't know football. How could you even be qualified to talk about like it's just respect to you and shout out to you and all the other females out there doing dope stuff in this space, man. We need more of that. We need more women. We need more people of color. We need more everybody just spreading positive vibes and good stuff. I don't care what color you are. If you got boobs or no boobs, man, we need to all love one another. We need to love one another and support each other, man. And if you got bad advice. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. You got bad advice. It doesn't matter. So I just appreciate this interview. I appreciate you and the positive energy that you throw out on Twitter, man. We need more of that.
Oh man, you're too kind. You're too kind. This has been real fun, and I'm glad that you got to come on and talk. And I will definitely have you come back on because there's so much more that we could talk about. But I'm old, so I have to go to bed.
Yeah, I got a show to edit.
Alrighty. You guys, make sure you're checking out Ray's stuff. Go follow him on Patreon. I'm gonna go do that after this. And we'll see you again next week. Adios, kids.